John, the problem of evil is one of the most difficult challenges for anyone who would believe in any sort of a transcendent reality. But it's specifically acute for those who would believe in a personal God that is all-powerful, all-knowing, and all-good. As a Christian, how do you deal with the problem of evil?
You're right, of course. It is the biggest challenge that there is to Christianity or indeed to any other religion. And we have to distinguish, as you implicitly did, between moral evil, the evil that we inflict upon one another, and natural evil, things like earthquakes and drought, famine, etc., etc. Now, concerning moral evil, how can an all-powerful God allow us to do the things that we do to each other in war and in the structures of society, which is so unfair to so many people, and so on? Well, we have to take account of human free will. We are free. We are free to act rightly or wrongly. And when we act wrongly, we have all the various forms of moral evil. They really come from the fact of human free will. Not all, but many natural evils also come from human free will. You see, a lot of disease is due to our not living sensibly, to our smoking or to our overeating. You know, if we insist on living in an earthquake area, as I did once in California for some years, we know there are going to be earthquakes, and if we decide of our free will to live there, that's our fault. And the same is true of if you live under a volcano. But this still leaves other natural evils, some diseases which are not due to human failures. I think what one has to say that we have to ask, what is this world for? And I think the Christian answer, this is a place of soul-making, or I would rather say person-making. And a person-making world must not be a paradise on earth in which there are no problems, no obstacles, nothing to challenge us. It has to be rather like the kind of world that we find, in which there are problems and challenges and difficulties to be overcome, because it's these that are person-making. One can't take up each individual aspect of the world and explain that, but one just has to say that a world in which there are all these kinds of difficulties and problems and obstacles is necessary for person-making.
If I were to accept that argument, and I understand it, I have two kinds of problems. First, on moral evil, that it may make sense for the totality of humanity to have this kind of world so we can be person-making, but it so horribly differentiates the oppressor from the oppressed, from the person who is inflicting the harm to the person who is receiving the harm, that it seems incompatible, if God is all-powerful, all-knowing, and all-good, to allow such a huge differentiation to happen to individuals in order that the totality be according to God's wishes.
But on the other hand, how can there be human free will and then God prevents us from using it?
I think the answer is that it can't. So some would therefore conclude that the God who is postulated to sit below this whole concept is incoherent, is contradictory, and therefore I reject the God. Others would say that in order to solve the ultimate problem, you need some kind of an afterlife. I think those are the two kinds of solutions.
Well, I think you see the religions do. Christianity does involve an afterlife belief. And you're quite right. This is essential to any response, adequate response to the problem of evil. It doesn't all put right in this life. There does have to be a continuation of life. As I once put it, if there's ever a convention of theodicists, I shall be there holding a placard saying, "No theodicy without eschatology."
Okay, well, let's explain what those two words mean, because I think that's very powerful.
Theodicy means an attempt to understand, explain the problem of evil. Eschatology means belief in a life beyond.
So what you're saying
context.
what you're saying is that it's absolutely impossible to have a full theodicy, a full way you can explain evil, without having an afterlife and eschatology.
So, yes, I think so.
All right, let's go to the natural evil. And even if a large number of the natural evil occurrences are caused by human frailties and mistakes, a huge number are not.
No.
I mean, you can have all sorts of occurrences, tsunamis and people dying. You had natural evil before human beings during evolution. Animals were suffering. So you have a huge amount of suffering as part of the structure of reality that has nothing to do with the freedom necessary for person making.
Well, not only is freedom necessary for person making, but also the kind of world in which we are, in which there are all these uncontrollable challenges and difficulties.
And so what's the implication of that?
Well, it has to be a world in which they don't have to be specifically, let us say, earthquakes and droughts, but there have to be something that has the same effect.
In other words, the world has to be of such a kind as to inject uncertainty in order to give us the kinds of challenges that are necessary. Not just the moral evil with each other. There has to be enough complexity and uncertainty of the world to enable us to be challenged. We can't be courageous unless there's something to fear.
Exactly. That's it, yes.
And in your mind, that justifies the evil of the world.
That plus the fact of life continuing beyond this life. You do need both.